Hi there, it's Angel, June 29th, 2026. I am doing a video in a fairly different format, I would say, and it's called Conceptual Frameworks in Optimal Health dash Manic Ministrations. So that's the title, Conceptual Frameworks in Optimal Health, Manic Ministrations. And I just re-looked up the word manic, excessive excitement or enthusiasm, or craze, and then ministration, the act of ministering care and aid. I kind of play around with words, and that is Manic Ministrations is the title of I'm just going to share screen of a Facebook page that I author. I'll just do a very quick peek, very, very quick. Oopsie, and where is it? Just hold on a moment. Yeah, here it is. So I guess I was making a note of that one. But yeah, here it is. It's got a very low 67 followers. And what do I say about myself? To explore and transform the way we look at mental illness in the Western developed world. So yeah, and I guess I was just noticing I may come back to this later. This one here, Temple Grandin, who is considered autistic, but very unique mind, and she solves some interesting real world problems. Hey, how come? Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm already getting myself all tangled up. Stop. Stop that. Yeah, we don't want that at all. Oh my goodness, I hate that it started like that. Let's go back to oh yeah, there I'm looking for this to unshare my screen. Stop sharing. Oh my goodness, we've gotten off to a weird start. But anyway, I have created some diagrams today, and instead of making slides in the computer, I just made some notes, and I'm show you pictures of my handwritten notes. So that will come, but I think I'm going to start off with I just wanted to sort of document some things I've been sharing with a few friends. I had 3 dreams that I remember, dream nights that I had lots of memory of in about the last couple of weeks, and whatever the dates were. The first one really struck me, and I wanted to share it just in general to my small audience. And it was, I guess I was left thinking I was sort of being shown what I'm calling time weaver, a time weaver as an accessible trait within the human race, I guess. So I'll just describe the dream like I've been describing to close friends, just because I find it really lit me up. So I wanted to document it. So in the first part of the dream, I'm just remembering I seem to be in a home, very like this one. This one's 1,500 square feet. Kind of, it's a duplex, so just narrow and 2 floors. But in this dream, it was a little bit nicer than this, and seemed to be in Europe, seemed to be in the future. A row house, like very beautiful outside architecture. And then inside it's a little bit less square footage because the second floor was looking down on the vaulted living room at the first floor. And so I'm just noticing, just appreciating my home in the dream, it felt like my home. And then click, just in the blink of an eye, there's a couple people in the place, and it's completely furnished differently, decorated differently. And I'm like, and then the woman says, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, well, I'm just standing in my home. And she goes, "Oh, this is my home now." She's telling me, "This is my home now. So, nice to meet you. Um, Thank you." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, please excuse me." I'm just all polite, and I leave the place because I'm like, "Oh, evidently is no longer my home." So I leave. And of course, in dreams, everything seems so normal. And I just was sort of thinking, like when I reflected back the next day, like, "Oh, she didn't seem too surprised to find this instant poop." I obviously popped into her home, and then, she very, very polite and nice, and, "Oh, nice to meet you. Sorry to bother you." And out I go. So I just wandering the streets for just admiring, like, "Oh, wow, what a beautiful neighborhood, blah, blah, blah." And then click, and then instant, I'm in the 1970s. I'm on a street. It seemed to be a gungier version of 1970s than I grew up in, kind of industrial and like rusty. I just felt like I saw rusty steel and buildings. And I just sort of noticed, I'm like, okay, wow, I was just there. Now I'm here. I'm like, this looks like the 70s. And I'm looking at how people are dressed and even saying hello on the street. Just no one seemed to notice. I didn't stand out in any way, just niceties. "Oh, hello, nice day," whatever. And then bloop, all of a sudden I'm in the 1990s. I'm like, oh, and in my mind, I'm not at all panicked, not at all worried, but just kind of like, ooh, perking up, like, wow, click, click, click. Now I'm in the 1990s. I felt that, and I was in front of a aerobic studio. Like, I guess that already says something about the 90s and gym, and people were coming and going. And I said, oh, excuse me, do you mind telling me what's the date? And they gave me a month and a day. And I said, and 1990. And then they gave me a year. I don't even remember the year. So like they didn't seem to think that was weird. I'm asking for the year. I'm like, ooh, and in my mind, I'm like, wow, I just been hopping through time right now, right here, and just felt really normal. Kind of reminded me of dreams I've had a number of times in my life where I remembered how to fly. And in the dream, it's like, oh my God, how could I have ever forgotten? And just so natural, so normal, kind of a non-event. And that's how it felt in this dream. I'm just like, oh, I'm surprised how comfortable I am. I've just jumped in time 3 times and like, oh, amazing. And just noticing no one, I'm able to do this very naturally. And I just like ting, wake up. And then I was reflecting the next day on this dream, kind of trying to dig in and see some, and I got this idea time weaver, like it was a thing, that it was like real. And just kind of made sense to me. And then I was even given this is my own higher self just telling me, I, in this year I've started darning socks, which I've never done in my life, but this year I somehow have a nice collection of wool socks that are really nice patterns and some cotton socks. I just like my socks. Like I like to match them, nice colors, nice patterns. And then I think I peeked one time in a store, the holes are starting, 10 pairs have a hole, one hole. And just like, I hate when I see my foot or my toe popping out or whatever. So I watched a couple YouTube videos. I thought, okay, darning, it's not that hard. So I bought three um, kind of colors that I liked, pink, orange, and a vintage red. So obviously they were going to contrast with whatever sock, but I would just pick the one so I've darned quite a number of them now, probably about 7. Not all of them, there's still more. But, and as I do it, I kind of do it, you're shown, it looks so simple, and the person's so pro on the YouTube video, and I'm not. So I just did it, and I was always left with some weird shaped polygon. It was never a perfect square or anything like that, but I'm like, covered the hole, and it looks nice, it's pleasing, and I didn't have a knot, so there was nothing to step on. And I've worn those socks many times, and I like so anyways, in my own self is saying, yeah, just like how you're darning, you're weaving through time, bringing, and that this act would be, it's kind of a remedy, like um, harmonizing the past, present, and future. Like, time is kind of an illusion. So it's kind of like I was just reflecting on it. It just kept coming up and for the next day or two, I was all lit up by this dream. It's like, oh, time weaver. And I had a chance to share it with someone who had also had that experience. So, I do have an interesting allotment. Well, my mentor, Kathleen. So she had mentioned that she had had that experience too. And it was many years ago. So anyways, it was almost like something I do, but I never consciously aware of it until that dream. And it just felt really real and it felt really cool. So I thought, that's really nice. Like sometimes you can wonder how best can I, just being yourself in this world. I've come to believe that that's a powerful contribution. And yet, what we can do in our I don't know, super conscious minds or however you want to think about it. So anyways, that dream lit me up. And then like a few days later, I had 2 nights in a row where I had a different kind of dream, but 2 of them. So the first night, it was almost like, it just again felt so real, super comfortable. I was speaking, seeming to be kind of a main like, but at the same time, not in a typical speaking in an auditorium with a podium, but a group of people are come to listen and discuss. So sort of two-way discourse. But the first night, it was all about conformity, the risks of conformity, and how we should be aware of when we're conforming, to be your true self and all this kind of thing. So I'm just kind of marveling in the dream how comfortable I felt. It was being received well. There was two-way conversation. I'm like, oh, that's a way easier way to do it than to make any formal, try to collect. How do you even collect the appropriate audience? But somehow I collected an audience. I don't think it was huge, maybe 40, 50, but still, I'm like, what? Oh my God, that felt really cool. And then the next night, it was on topic more of psychiatry and harmonizing and being aware of the foundations of what are these labeled conditions. So I was talking again with a group of 40 or 50, comfortable, being well received. I'm super comfortable, but we're all kind of more in a circle and not on a podium or on a stage or anything like that, but just having really good discourse. And I heard myself, one thing cool about that second night of discourse or whatever you want to call it. So in the dream, I'm like, oh, I like this. But anyway, in that one, I could hear myself say a new thing that I'd never even thought in my waking life. It's like, okay, I'm telling, here we're in this very natural relating conversation, being well received, and I'm listening and I'm speaking as well. So I just said, oh, there's only really, I think at this point in where we are now, seemed to be 2026. It felt like it was this era. There's only two diagnoses that I think are really highly relevant right now. If we could focus on these, we would get a far, far away. And one was poverty, and two was unresolved trauma in this life or past parallel lives. So I was like, oh, I thought that was kind of funny, but cool. Anyways, just felt really real, and those were dreams that I had. And I'm not one to always remember my dreams or for them to feel that real. So anyways, it just felt like a very different level of dream that I had. So I just wanted to share that before getting into a little more of a formal presentation. But yeah, I will just say as a preface to what I'm choosing to share now in this conceptual framework, and I really think, really consider it's just trying to deliver a concept, and sometimes we do that with analogies, metaphors, stories, and in this case, diagrams. I've actually been planning to make some similar diagrams to what I'm going to show you right now for quite a while, actually. So this is a long procrastinated thing. Well, what I want to do is share my screen. And there's going to be no songs or movies or anything like that today. So let's just put this down. We might come back to that. Okay, so the first one I'm going to show you, optimal health diagrams. That's what I've called it here. Yeah, so let's make that. Oh, this is my toolbar in the way. Why don't I put you? Oh, I better put you somewhere where I can get you later. Down here. I'm just going to make this as big as possible. So anyways, I got out the pencil and the paper and I made this diagram. Let me just explain. So like this would be this is a stick person, a head, and then the heart is really big, kind of alluding to the fact that our heart electromagnetic field is much, much stronger and bigger than our mind electromagnetic field. So I don't know why I just chose to try and draw this. And these are the arms, and this is the legs, and yeah, so then I'm showing how energy flows from cosmic energy or organic harmonious creation, which I often use that in place of God, like the idea that there's reality fields, organic harmonious creation fields. Cosmic energy comes down through your crown and into your body and goes through all these energy centers. And then below, after the first chakra, it goes down to the earth chakra. So this is under the earth usually, and then there's energy. And then there's two-way energy flow to the core of the earth and to the cosmic energy fields. And we're all embedded and nested in our reality fields and interconnected with all sentient beings, which I didn't try to demonstrate through a diagram, but another diagram might come down the road, who knows. And so this is my simplified diagram of a human energy map, optimal interconnection with reality fields, even though this is so superficial and it's not covering all the relevant data. However, got to start somewhere. And just this two-way simplified energy flow. Yet I wonder how many directions and multiple dimensions. Like this is just a simplified idea. And then here, I'm not trying to portray the torus field. Oh, and I forgot to find a better diagrammatic picture for that. But I consider it sort of spiraling around, like it's coming up and out, but not in a perfect, but more spiraling. Like we have this big donut of energy going both ways around us. And I'm calling that the torus field. So I've sort of just very simplistically put it there. So to me, that's an element of what is our body and how our body connects to reality. And it's kind of like a receiver transmitter, like our physical body needs care, but at the same time, so much of our world is set up not considering this aspect of our anatomy. So yeah, let me just escape that. And I'll go grab a diagram of, it's funny because I took these pictures on my phone and this one came out blurry. I thought that was kind of funny. But so then there's sort of this, what could be considered optimal, but again, just a conceptual hypothesis, I guess, but I think there's a lot of people who see this aspect of our anatomy. So here's the stick person without any intake of, the cosmic energy and some energy going into the ground, but maybe not a full, optimization of the earth chakra. So having less impact on what could be like energy lines in our earth, what do you call them, like ley lines, and the fact that there's just networks of energy flowing in the ethers and under the ground. And anyway, so this typical human circa 2000s, tangled energy flow resistance. And then this idea of, somehow the flow isn't coming in properly from the upper levels, and yet there's all this flow of energy coming into the body. And I've listed a bunch of what I think are, I'll show it maybe bigger, just that there's relevant data points about our health. And I love to use this as a kind of a symbol to show how many there are. And this is probably just a underrepresentation, but some are more relevant than others, I guess. And I think this is really relevant. But the idea that electromagnetic frequencies, mainstream media, education, entrainment affects our mindset. So all these things are coming into our awareness, and then we're not getting sort of this more natural flow between the earth and the ethers, for lack of better words. So that all these factors, and then pharmaceuticals and heavy metals do impact our ability to function in the, I guess what I'm calling over here, a more optimal way. So all these things are directing our focus and attention. We remain distracted by external influences, but also physical influences, like the fact that you physically are going to be incapable without removing some of these issues. Like this is just a kind of trying to be a little tiny bit of a list. But anyway, I just had to play around with diagrams, and there's a couple diagrams. Oh my gosh. And here's another one. This is the last diagram that I'm showing today. I kind of got a little bored, but look at that one. I took my stick man, with the little brain, big heart figure, and I've got this pressure release valve concept, which I will explain right now. Oh, how do I want to explain that? Well, I guess just with my own experience, and I know I had what medicine calls psychosis, and after all of that was in 2012, I had a few other episodes like that, and took medication until 2016, just lithium, and then stopped all medication, and then just tried to, with all of my ideas and concepts, I just like, hey, I'm going to practice on myself. I'm going to experiment on myself, and just again, I think concepts just help us to at least frame how to direct our attention, focus, intention, and resources. But the idea that I came to via my own experience, but also witnessing it in others, is that I felt like, a lot of energy started to flow, like some of these things that I was doing for myself to remove the tangles and blockages and resistance. So then all of a sudden, whoosh, a lot of energy started flowing through. That was especially in October 2012 with my first, what I call out of the ordinary episode, but what allopathic medicine calls psychosis. So I consider myself like a pressure release valve. And I really thought about this concept over the years, and I even had a couple more episodes that I was incarcerated in the allopathic legacy hospital system. And then I had a final episode where I seemed to be able to, I wasn't incarcerated in the hospital system, and I kind of was a little bit bumpy, but at the same time, I managed it with just friends and support, basic human care, and got through that episode and felt like it kind of allowed for a better completion so that I could actually, oh, okay. And I don't think a lot of people are actually allowed or even would consider to try and find that completion. And I think in my case, it was a little bit not complicated by socioeconomic issues. And I think that hurts my heart quite a bit, that a lot of people, when you have all those tangles and maybe all kinds of family dysfunction, there's just too many tangles to really consider, how am I going to get through this without some support? And I think support can easily be offered in the future, now and in the future, easier now than it was 15 years ago. But this pressure release valve concept, so now I had all this energy flowing, so just so much energy and so much to clear. Oh, geez, this isn't making much sense. I can see that already. Let me see, what did I do? I had some stats. Let me just, oh, I don't want it to be that big. And the vibe, let's see, that one, make that one that big. Yeah, so I guess just using my own devices. Whoops, I don't want that. What did I do there? So I'm using this analogy that these pressure release valves Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I'm going to publish this. This is too confused. So I vibed in 2010. How many people with this pressure release valve kind of function? I'm just giving it a functional label because I do feel that there is a function to this, and that the people who are acting that way with mental health labels, 75% in 2010, and in 2026, only 20%. And then the pressure relief valve living in the Western developed world in 2010, I felt was 75%, and into 2026, 72%. And then you might think, okay, well, that's random. Well, that's just my feeling of remote perception, being able to view or ask questions and get answers. So it's kind of a part of intuition. And then I went, I did some math here. So I decided I just randomly vibed. Okay, in 2010, I'm just going to, because we're just talking functional. I know some people might get triggered, like, oh my God, the world population in 2010 was actually 6.25. I have no idea. Maybe it was 7 billion. But I used the population 6 billion, and then I vibed for 2026 to use 7 billion because I'm just using this in a functional way. So I felt that in 2010, the pressure release valves were about 1%, 60 million people, but 99% were neutralized via all those fun things I was showing you over here, but pharmaceuticals being a big part of it, the typical human diagram. So pharmaceuticals, so then they're not having access, there's no flow, and therefore they can't do their function that they are capable of. Oh, and I had some notes about what they thought that function was. Oh, is that here? PRV flow. But anyways, yeah, so I'm just fooling around. And yeah, so then in 2026, with the considering a world population approx of 7 billion, I felt that 13.2%, 924 million, were in these pressure release valve functional capabilities, and 30% neutralized. So 277.2 million people neutralized, but flowing 646.8 million versus 600,000 in 2010. Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to give a perspective that maybe, these things are, a lot of people might be discouraged thinking, oh, look at the world and blah, 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 blah. But to me, I'm like, whoa, look at the world in 2026 compared to 2010. A lot of people would consider 2012 as kind of a turning point where things started to change. And these are all things that aren't visible. And so I'm, with my tendril of attention, just vibing in, remotely viewing or receiving this kind of data. So anyways, this is what I think about sometimes. So let's put that down. And what else did I get here? Is this one that I showed? No, that was not the one. Oh yeah, I just showed my math a little bit. So here, like in that diagram, I saw that in the 2010 there'll be 120 million per figure, and in 100 and 2026, 140 million people represented for each figure. So then I use these what do you call them, highlighters to show. So this maybe, oh yeah, that's what I have here. I wonder, just it might make a little more sense. So in 2010, I've got like half of representing that 600,000, or no, this was the 600,000, the yellow. But now, like, look at how many more. Each one of these is 140 million. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think it was not quite 5. So you see how there's an arm and a leg sticking out there. And then the neutralized ones were less, much less of a proportion of the pressure release valve, functional pressure release valve people. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to show here on this diagram. Kind of makes me laugh a little bit because that's a funny thing to do, but I just took a different approach to my day and whipped out and started making diagrams. So 1, 2, 3, and then what do we have here? Optimal health, typical. Yeah, so then the last thing I guess I wrote out legacy allopathic medicine overfixates on chemistry, fails to incorporate the foundational energy flow aspects, focuses therapy on pharmaceuticals, and interferes with electromagnetics and energy flow all day long. And optimal health will not include use of pharmaceuticals of any kind. That's a vision that I have for the future. And it would take kind of a collaborative effort, I think, to try and tease some of these pharmaceuticals away from people. However, there's so much we would be doing in addition when we get kind of collaborative and really, the right people will align and get excited, have enthusiasm for this kind of work. And then this optimal health is highly related to beliefs, what you believe about health. And there's a lot of self-limiting beliefs, I think, that are perpetuated, amplified, and are given the stages and the theaters and the speakers to talk about them. Just as an aside, little fun fact that I learned this week. I watched a video on someone talking about biofields, so I have a lot of interest in that for this reason, just energy flows in the biological systems, like that's so relevant, in my opinion, is one of these relevant nails on the optimal health model here. And that this particular woman who was presenting gave a TED talk, and in the process of doing the TED talk, she learned there were a number of words that were not allowed, and one of them is placebo. Placebo, not allowed in a TED talk. And I'm like, what? Oh my goodness, that's just crazy. So anyways, like beliefs and censorship, I guess, and narrative, who controls the narrative, etc. But anyways, I'm just wanting to make some proclamations. Self-healing mechanisms activate in optimal health. They are nurtured and we give them attention. So yeah, so I just wanted to say those things. It was a lot easier in the dreams. I'm laughing at myself. Oh, what do I want to do now? I think I'm just going to show some pictures. Don't try to think outside the box. Understand that there is no box. Yeah. And this is going to be the thumbnail, I think, for this video. I just thought this was really cool, seeing how the energy is flowing on the woman herself. Self-love and yeah, just, anyways, I like that. I like art. So there's no music or movies this time, but we've got art. And what else do we have here? Your body's ability to heal is greater than anyone has permitted you to believe. That's a fun statement to say out loud. I like that. That's a good meme. Oh, here's a longtime favorite. The greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. Worth pondering that concept. Concept. Okay. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. How would you define sick? I mean, I think there's sort of a normalization of aging, decrepitude, chronic disease. Like, when did we become so complacent? Like, we were sort of trained into complacency and just to comply and fit in. And oh dear me, that hurts my heart a little bit. And here's this one, just happened to be here and I didn't take it down, but nothing exists in isolation. Synarchy. If you were to look up, actually, I might include in a comment Gene Keys, some little article about synarchy as it's spoken about in the Gene Keys book by Richard Rudd, because it's a really good concept, really excites me. And conceptual thinking, at some point you got to start with concepts and then turn that into, oh yeah, and here's another fun, long time favorite. Back in the 90s, I read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this was one of the, I don't know, a concept that really struck me as super important and kind of relevant as I'm speaking of these things today. There's this 4 quadrants. They've got the urgent and important things, like there's a fire, get the fire department. Not urgent, but important. And that's what I'm trying to draw some attention to, this quadrant 2. To me, quadrant 2, lack of attention and focus on quadrant 2 issues in the world are one of the greatest problem. Like, I mean, there's such opportunity here. They're not urgent, but they're important, and they're becoming more, they become urgent if you don't attend to them. And I think for generations we haven't, so it's feeling more and more urgent. But then the idea of urgent and not important, people who, and that's mainstream media right there, mainstream media and so many things, that even possibly your job and the activities you do at your job, but then there's also the not important and not urgent. And that's when you want to take your relaxed time and do whatever. I think there's a place for that. And we could try to minimize these not important, urgent, someone else's urgency trying to be thrust upon you. And of course, urgent and important. I think the more we attend to quadrant 2, the important, not urgent, then the less we can literally eliminate and really minimize the important, urgent things, because we'll be looking after them. You put out the fire before the fire even starts. Anyways, that's fun to say. And I think I have one last one. I'd throw a tiny bit of comedy in here. There it is. The whole apocalypse thing got a bit too depressing, so we've reinvented ourselves as the 4 horsemen of working together to get us all out of the mess that we're in. Hope, justice, empathy, just basically not being a dick. So that's pretty funny. Yeah, and then I'd meant to send one more picture to myself, but I didn't. But I'm just going to read from my notes here. I'm going to get off. And then get off the stop share. Here we go. And yeah, so I just slightly related, maybe a little tangential, but examples of natural remedies. I feel like functional types of human beings that are born into certain functions. And I'm kind of, I don't know, I'll just list the three that came to my mind. And I thought for a long time, Down syndrome, someone with Down syndrome, they might have limitations in their quote intellect, and yet their hearts are so powerful and they're really fun to be around, tend to be in a good mood. And I don't know, they're just a really good example for us. And I feel like their energy just emanates and radiates out for the betterment of all. And then there was sort of a trend. I know when I was going through medical school in the 1980s, graduated in 1990, there was a trend to, oh, let's diagnose Down syndrome prior to birth so we can abort those children. It's like, oh boy, but nature has a way of delivering the remedies. So Down syndrome babies were born, we're born, we're born. We needed them. Like I feel like we did. And then the autistic spectrum is another one, kind of another example of a remedy. So not really, I'm not going to try and define. I think it's quite a spectrum, but a lot of these children are nonverbal. They don't function that well. They're hypersensitive. I think they're challenging to parent from what I've read and seen. I do pay attention to that. The telepathy tapes kind of brought that in the forefront a little bit more to a wider audience. So what did I say? And energetically will not conform to distorted energy fields. They're multidimensionally sensitive and they naturally adjust reality fields. I believe that. And I've come into closer contact with someone, Kara Cully. She works with nonverbal autistics, and one in particular named Noah, who was featured in the telepathy tape. So anyways, I met Kara in person, and it was kind of funny because it was a 45-minute session, and I saw her interviewed once, and I'm like, wow, I got to connect with her. I don't even know why. So a month later, we were connecting for 45 minutes, and I was kind of saying, yeah, sometimes I wonder if I'm autistic, like there's something that I see in common with that. And she goes, oh yeah, you're one of us. So anyways, in Kara Cully's words, I fall into the autistic spectrum myself. And I don't think that will surprise anybody. And then number three is the bipolar disorder schizophrenia as labels that are given by the DSM-5 in the legacy allopathic medicine. So I feel like those labels are associated with the functional capacity to transmute distortions and to mirror distortions and this pressure release valve function. And it's actually a positive one. However, it is confusing and yeah, it can be a little hard to handle. So a simplified list of canaries in the coal mine. And I saw someone wearing a t-shirt. I can't remember. I thought it was a little dark. How many canaries have to die before we do something? It's like, ooh, I knew exactly what he was talking about. But it was someone had a t-shirt made saying that, canaries in a coal mine. All these messengers are coming out into our world, and yet we're distracted away from those messages. They're not perceiving them in the way that I'm sharing with you right now. And I did kind of add fourth, addiction. And I don't know if they're quite the canaries in the coal mine, but they kind of are. And I've made a couple of just rough notes. Draw attention to suboptimal care of humans. If everyone is connected, can you imagine how reality will perform and feel in a world without addicted people? Challenging. Not one of us has had the opportunity yet of how easeful that will feel. That's a prediction that I have. Human care, no one left out. Can you imagine? So that was my semi-didactic, functional kind of, yeah. And I guess I was thinking of that Temple Grandin as she's inspired a lot of people, labeled autistic in a day, I think in the 50s when really autism wasn't very commonly known. And she had this really, what does she call herself? A visual thinker. So anyway, she has made major contributions to the cattle industry and how they treat the cows and making everything run a little smoother. But anyway, she has had a documentary made about her life and also a movie. She had a movie made about her, and I watched both of them this spring and I thought they were really good. So I guess there is a little mini movie medicine there. How much time have I gone? I was hoping to be less than 40 minutes, and it's less than 40 minutes. Yay for me. I'm not sure if this is going to get recorded, but I will sign off for this very unusual eclectic video. I am going to, oh, how do I stop recording? How do I do that? How come I can't see that? Ah, there